Okay. I see Callie has started the recording. Thank you, Callie. I think we're ready to go. So I am calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It's 11:16 on October 16th, 2024, and I'm Barb Neal. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. Let's start with our usual roll call of task force members. If you could verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name, that would be great. Jen Morrison.
I am here.
Okay. Paul White.
I am here.
Michael Wright.
I'm here.
Okay. Jim Mack.
Here.
Good. And I am looking for Ron Kumitz. I do not see him yet. Okay, and Mike Dunges is not able to join us today. So maybe Ron will pop in a minute. Okay, so also joining us today is Callie Audette as our administrative support person. And I'll share with everyone now that Callie has let us know that she'll need to step away from her role as the task force clerk in November so that she can focus on her real job as the Homeland Security Program Manager at the Vermont Homeland Security Unit. So Callie, I think we might get one more meeting out of you. We've got one more in October before you leave us, but I will take a moment now just to say how much we truly appreciate the commitment and dedication you've shown to the task force over this past, year and a half almost. Thanks for everything you've done to keep us organized and on track. And of course, we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Callie.
Yay. I see
Thank
some
you.
applause going
Yeah.
on. And so now I'll introduce also Callie's replacement, Emily Mullaney. Emily, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Emily is going to shadow Callie through this meeting today. Emily works at the Vermont Crime Information Center, as I understand it. We welcome you, Emily, today.
Thank you. Yes, you're saying my name right.
Okay, good. Callie mentioned that you will be shadowing her, of course, today, maybe at the next meeting as well, and that she's giving you some training and background information about the task force. But don't hesitate to reach out to me or Commissioner Morrison if you have any questions as you're getting up to speed. We're happy to help. And thank you for offering to help us out.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, so on with the roll call. We have also with us our project management partners, Rick and Dom from Televate. Good morning.
Morning.
And we have from Mission Critical, we have Phil Sisk. Good morning. And I'm not seeing
Morning.
Jason.
No, I'm sorry, Jason could not be here this morning.
Okay.
Conflict.
Okay, so it's Phil Sisk from Mission Critical. Good morning. And then it looks like we have one member of the public, perhaps. I'm seeing a username of ENISLED. Would you care to introduce yourself and any affiliation you care to share? If you're speaking, we're not hearing you. Okay, perhaps doesn't want to introduce themselves, and that is fine. All right, let's move on to approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed to task force members by email. It's also available on the webpage, our webpage. I have one change I would like to propose. That would be to include under the regional town hall and public listening session agenda item. Under that agenda item, I'd like to also begin to discuss this subject-specific workshops that are being planned for later this fall. So I'm wanting to lump that all under the agenda or that agenda item. Are there any other changes that people would like to propose? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the change I just discussed?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank
Seconded.
you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the changes to the agenda as discussed, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Alrighty. Thank you. That the changed agenda then is approved. So let's move on to approval of the minutes. These would be the minutes from October 2nd, 2024, the regular meeting number 35. Any changes needed to these minutes? Okay. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Make a
Sure.
motion to,
There you go.
There you
Jim's,
go.
Jim's got the motion. I'll take the second.
You guys are fighting it out today, so.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from October 2nd, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. Hands are up. Excellent. So the minutes are approved. And we will move on to the regional town hall / public listening session / workshop planning meetings. I'll just give a little introductory stuff here on each of those things, and then we can discuss where things stand as we go along. So the regional town halls, as you know, have all been completed. Mission Critical is continuing to slice and dice the data we gathered from those town halls, along with the information, of course, that they received from the questionnaires that were sent out to dispatch centers. Also on the regional town hall follow-up, I know that Rick and Dom have had some follow-up conversations with individuals from those meetings to better understand specific issues and or perspectives. Anything from anyone else to add on the regional town hall topic? Okay. Then let's turn to the planning for the 2 community listening sessions. These are the sessions, of course, that are intended to engage directly with the public. We have the 2 sessions scheduled actually for next week. So October 22nd, which is Tuesday, from 11:30 to 1:30, and then again on October 24th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The announcements went out about these sessions via the DPS, Department of Public Safety Communications team. There were social media posts, email distribution lists. We used a front porch forum distribution to hopefully engage with many, many thousands of people. I did find that front porch forum announcement in my town's front porch forum on the October 14th issue, but I think it was going to hit at different times starting last Sunday.
So Barb, I just want to
Um,
jump in there and say that
mhm.
the deal with Front Porch Forum, which was not inexpensive, I'd like to point out, is that it will come up in various feeds until it reaches 648,000 views. That's
Wow.
basically a view for every citizen in the state. So hopefully
That's
that's
great.
effective. But I also really want to make sure that folks on this call and beyond are clear that there is going to be a 3rd listening session. So a couple things, the date is not nailed down, but it will be in November, probably towards the end before Thanksgiving. But I think it's going to be the week of the 18th, but we don't have a date yet. And that will be advertised slightly differently, not necessarily with the same audience, but we have added American Sign Language interpretation for the meetings next week. So we have interpreters lined up. They are looking for direction from Mission Critical on how to access the meeting, and there was small requirements they needed to be able to be pinned for the people who want to be able to watch the interpreter. We've also changed the landing page for the 2 sessions to ask if people have language access needs, and if so, to identify what language they need. And we're going to take that information. If there are folks who need accommodation, there is a closed caption ability to be translated in one of many languages on the platform. It's not ideal. So for that 3rd session, we're going to invite anyone with language access needs, and we're going to be translating the announcement of the meeting and sending it to groups that we know have interest and work with people who speak their first language is something other than English, so that we can try to engage this population, which is a vulnerable population when it comes to emergency communications, and make sure that we hear what they want and need from a future emergency communication system. So there is a lot of work behind the scenes on my team happening relative to being accessible to anyone, particularly more vulnerable Vermonters. And there will be a date and time announced for a third listening session that will have as many translators as we need, and they can all be in separate breakout rooms, but participating in the meeting and the meeting content in real time. So stay tuned for more detail on that.
That's great. Excellent. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you the other day, I had not seen anything on Front Porch Forum or anywhere. If I wasn't aware of the listening sessions as a member of the task force, I wouldn't be aware at all. So while we're talking here, I just went on to Front Porch Forum and searched. And I did find, of course, you have access to your own town plus the surrounding towns. So I did find it listed in the Berlin Front Porch Forum. It ran on October 9th. But it still has not appeared in the Barrytown Forum or any of the others that I have access to. So it's
Interesting. Well, I
Yeah,
hope
it
we haven't
hasn't
gotten to
landed on mine either.
650,000.
yeah.
I don't know quite how it works, how they divvy up where it goes out to. I suppose that would be a question for the communications people, Jen, if we
Right.
wanted to know
Mhm.
that. Jim, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just looking on my Front Porch Forum and I'm not seeing anything either.
Interesting. I did learn from Jason from Mission Critical this morning that we have, I think it's about 25 people registered for the first session.
Good.
And I think it's fewer than 10 right now for the second session. And there are some duplicates, Jen noticed. So it's hard to know where those are coming from, right? How people are becoming aware of them. But I don't know, do we need to do anything further as far as understanding how Front Porch Forum is working, or are we good?
So I did push the notice out to every single incumbent right now legislator, both in the House and the Senate, and asked them to amplify this message through their channels. Many of them do email group pushes with some periodicity. I did see some reps post it as their part of their weekly update that they do on Facebook. I mean, sorry, not Facebook. Well, yes, I saw it on Facebook too, but to Front Porch Forum. So we also alerted all of the media, weeklies, dailies, print, radio, and TV. So I'm not sure what else we could do to get the word out. But if folks have ideas, we asked the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to send it to all town managers and town administrators to put into whatever communication they push out. So if you guys have other ideas, happy to pursue them, but we've really tried to get the word out there.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
I mean, another avenue is through the regional planning commissions, but I think they're only going to push it to the same group that the League of Cities and Towns pushed it to the town
Yeah,
officials.
and we did,
Right.
they should have gotten it through Vermont Emergency Management's social media pushes, and they have a lot of connection through those
Right.
different platforms.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like it's been a thorough outreach. And I'm glad that your team was able to help us with that, because that's a heavy lift as far as I'm concerned. So so there is a meeting in the works for tomorrow, I believe, where Paul, Jen, and I at Televate will kind of finalize the planning, and Mission Critical, sorry, it will finalize the planning for these sessions. We did receive, Callie received all the responses about task force member availability to attend each of those sessions. So I will compile that and get a schedule out to everyone with who's going to be where or in which session. Remember, we do need to keep the task force membership to 3 or less. And so watch for that email. We'll also send a link to the registration landing page, because whichever session you're going to take part in, you should register for, so that you get the link to the meeting on your calendar. So I'll be putting that all together, and we'll go from there. And then obviously let me know if schedules change, and we can work with that as well. So anything
Barb,
else? Go ahead,
maybe-
Paul.
I probably forgot to write something down, but I don't have anything on my calendar for tomorrow. And if there is
No.
something scheduled, I'm not sure I can make it.
I think there was just an email going back and forth trying to schedule something.
I think
For
we
8 o'clock.
decided on 8 AM. 8 AM was one of the only holes that we all had at the same time
Oh,
tomorrow.
I might be able to do that actually, if it's that early.
So MCP Televate, I think that's an MCP meeting. So if they can get that meeting request out, we will. We're meeting to discuss the run of show for the listening sessions.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that is supposed to be at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So Phil, if you could have
Okay.
Jason or Bonnie push that meeting invite out, that would be helpful.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else from anyone on the community listening sessions? Rick, was that your hand up, or you're just moving about?
Yeah, no, my bad. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, let's move on then to talking about the series of subject-specific workshops that are going to be scheduled later this fall. So the purpose of the workshops is really to delve a bit deeper into specific topics that have come up as we've had all this stakeholder engagement. I do have a list of topics that have been kicked around. We want to see if those topics are working for task force members, and also discuss sort of the order and timing of each workshop. One of the suggestions, and I may kick this over to you, Jen, because you had some good ideas around all this, but one of the suggestions that was talked about yesterday was to start with a workshop about lessons learned from previous regionalization attempts, hopefully to identify and avoid any potential pitfalls that others have encountered, or at least know what the pitfalls we might encounter are. So that was one idea. There's also a question around, when do we do these workshops, so that, what is the discussion point? Is it going to be what Mission Critical has come up with for as they are bringing the development of the potential plans together, or where are we with that discussion? So Jen, you had some other thoughts on this. Do you want to add something here?
I thought that the timing of the sessions probably made sense to be thoughtful about. For instance, one of the sessions we had discussed having was lessons learned from prior efforts to regionalize. And it seems to me like that should be the first workshop we hold, right? So that we can not repeat or try to find solutions to some of the roadblocks, and that recognizing some of that information in whatever report comes at the end of this process, that's included. I mean, for instance, it is a very real problem to try and take multiple existing communication centers and smash the personnel together who all have different labor unions or contracts, conditions of work, salary, seniority, how they bid for shifts. The logistics of bringing personnel together in a new entity, I know, is a formidable one. So I think, to me, it makes sense to have that type of workshop first and get those lessons out there so we can start either problem solving or at least recognize them in the report. The order of play beyond that, I didn't have a lot of input into the middle, but there had been a suggestion that the workshops on what end users want for a CAD system would be the first ones out of the gate. And in my mind, those are the last ones out of the gate. That is an operational level window dressing. That is not foundational to creating a regional or statewide emergency communication system. So that my 2 cents is that the CAD would be at the end, the lessons learned would be at the front, and then whatever other individual workshop topics this group decides is most appropriate would be in the middle.
Okay, great. And some of those other topics that have been brought up, so we've talked about the lesson learned topic and the CAD topic, which maybe Jen's suggestion at least would be for it to go at the end. We've talked about a telecommunicator focused or operations focused workshop, directed at supervisors, dispatchers, call takers, maybe at 2 different sessions for, director level and on the front lines level. That would cover staffing, training, operational standards, that type of thing. So that whole spiel was one topic, telecommunicator focused. Coverage topic, so coverage, LMR, cellular, or perhaps separately, and interoperability is another topic. Governance, funding. So let's start here. Does everyone agree that lessons learned would be a good first stop?
Absolutely.
Okay. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have to start there.
Okay. Okay.
We'll somehow have to identify those areas where it has been attempted and try to coax those folks into coming and participating with us. But yes, for sure.
Right. And on that front, I had Chittenden County, of course, and then the Central Vermont effort. Probably other people know of more that we can brainstorm those offline, I suppose, on who we want to invite.
But it's not just what has been tried and failed, but also what has been tried and succeeded.
Mm-hmm. Good
I
point.
hadn't even thought of that. Good point, Paul.
That's how negatively we approach things. That's not good. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna make the same point Paul did. There have been some successes, certainly, that we heard about in the town halls. St. Albans area, Lamoille County, areas in the southern part of the state as well. So yeah, I think it'd be lessons learned both on the good side and the bad side.
Okay, great.
And the other point I wanted to make is that I agree that it makes sense certainly to be the first one, because we don't really need a lot of information from the data gathering sessions to really get valuable input out of this. We can pretty much do this anytime.
Yep. Okay. I'm just making a note here, schedule for anytime. And then the other topics, though, we do think might be dependent on that data gathering and that inventory list, right? I mean, that would provide a foundation for the conversation. Everybody would have a common understanding of where we are now, because we would have that data. So that would put the timing of these other things out further, and I don't have it right in my mind right now when that would be, but Dom, do you know offhand when we might?
Well, the initial contract says that the inventory report should be done by October 25th. I believe that we have heard that there may be a request for an extension, but I have not received a request for an extension on that. Let's just say it's 2 weeks later than that, and it's whatever that would be, November 6th, 7th, something like that. But so that means that any subsequent workshops other than the one we just talked about on lessons learned would logically happen after the date, because I agree with you, Barb, that until we can look at the landscape as it exists today and understand all of the picture that MCP has been pulling together, it's going to be difficult to have fact-based conversations about the current status of LMR coverage, cell coverage, and other things. The only other topics, like workshop topics, that I suspect could happen before we see the data are if we were going to do one specific to brainstorming governance models or one specific to brainstorming funding models. So those two topics, I'm not sure we need to be dependent on seeing the inventory and the, you know, the data collection. But the other ones strike me as we do need to see that before we get too deep into them.
Would we need the information from the questionnaires and the input from the town halls to support the or not to support, but to lay that foundation again for the governance? I mean, we'll learn about the various forms of governance out there from that and about the various funding mechanisms, but you're not seeing that it would necessarily be worth waiting for that. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that the information about governance and funding are not going to come from the town halls, because I don't think we dove deep enough into how each of the existing entities bill, or maybe that information is coming from the surveys, maybe that's coming from the on-site visits. I'm not sure. So I guess when I think about the funding mechanism, I don't necessarily think about how any one agency is doing it. I think about how this, as a state, not just a state entity, but across the entire state, how should we be doing it in an equitable and sustainable manner? So I guess I was thinking bigger than the current landscape.
Well, and it wouldn't, yeah, exactly. It wouldn't limit our discussion to the current landscape. There may be other ways to do that. So I don't know. I guess I could see those happening before as well, before the data is all together. So so I made that note: governance and funding after lessons learned, as two separate workshops. Is that the intent, or do we want those together?
I think the people that you pull in for subject matter expertise are going to be very different. For funding, we're going to have some people who really know about taxing, fees. I just don't see them being exactly the same groups, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
And I think either one could be a lengthy discussion and would go over time.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so that leaves the telecommunicator focused discussion, which may include CAD, the coverage discussion till after the inventory work is done. So that would put those sessions the week of November 18th, which we're already going to have the third community listening session that week, we think, or the first week of December is what I've got written down. Does that all make sense?
It does, and I think this is all, very drafty. This is a draft plan, right?
Right.
In thinking about the fact that there's going to be multiple workshops, I wonder what the other task force members think about a task force member being affiliated with at least one workshop, so that Barb and I aren't trying to corral all 7 or 8 or 9 of the workshops, that each task force member is responsible for being the primary task force liaison for one of these topics. And that is the go-to person for Televate and MCP to interface with around that. That's an idea, like adopt a session, adopt a workshop. What do you think about that, team?
I mean, I'm game. I guess I'd like us to agree on, what's the role of the task force member versus what's the role of MCP versus, what's expected.
If they go like the regional town halls and what I anticipate will happen in the community listening session, we're more, I mean, those were led by Mission Critical. They have a really good facilitation team, I think, as far as drawing information out of
Mhm.
people and keeping the conversation going. So I kind of felt like I was in listening mode,
Right.
the entire time that I was at those regional town halls.
It was logistical work on the front end. The time.
I see. Yeah.
the
Okay.
day,
Yeah.
The see, now for workshops, we have to curate a group of subject matter experts, right?
Right.
This is not a
Mhm.
cast your net widely publicly
Right.
and see who shows up. This is getting the right people around the table to help inform our SMEs of the art of the possible and concerns and stuff like that. So
Right.
I do think there's a little more front end work
Mhm.
for these rather than just making sure we get a public announcement out there.
And we haven't come to a conclusion on whether they're going to be virtual or in person.
We have not come to a conclusion on that.
Okay. I think some of them, it will be, like talking about the very first one, it would be difficult to, maybe not difficult, but it won't be necessarily easy to get everybody together in person if we're talking about lessons learned in Chittenden County, lessons learned in Washington County, lessons learned in Lamoille. Somebody's going to have to travel, and that will add to the difficulty in coaxing people to come.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah, I think there's a valid discussion to be had about whether in person makes sense, given that we're trying to pull people from all corners of the state. So totally open to that discussion.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I very much prefer an in-person meeting. I think they're a lot more productive. But when we're begging for people to come participate in our discussions, we may have to make it easier for them to get there.
Mhm. I agree with that. My preference would be virtual for that reason. I think it encourages participation. Really, I would suggest that for all of them, I think. Task force members agree, or?
I don't think you have a choice now. I think everybody's in that mode of everyone is doing so many meetings now that, it's impossible to get to everything in person. So I think you have to have a blend of in person and virtual. I think we're in the world now that, we're forced to, even though I agree too, in person is a preferred option, but I think we're beyond that, and especially as having these statewide meetings, I think it would be impossible to think we're going to get anybody there to the in-person ones.
Mhm. So frankly, that saves a lot of logistics in the sense of booking rooms and all of that too. So, you have a meeting and it's virtual, and that's that. Are we ready to make a decision about who's adopting which topic, or do we want to think about that and revisit next meeting?
I will volunteer to adopt the first one, the lessons learned. And I think as soon as we start getting a timeline built, which will require consulting with Jason and Bonnie, who are not here, and Rick and Dom, as soon as we start putting a timeline together, I think that's going to drive which of our task force members can even commit to that.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
So let's leave it as an item to come back to and possibly resolved before our next regular meeting.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Okay. All right, then, anything else that we want to be talking about the workshops today? Okay. Sounds good. We will move on then to public comment. Is there anyone on the line who would like to offer public comments today? Hearing nothing, we will move on to project updates. Dom, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Barb. And good morning to all task force members and everyone. As we've heard today so far, a lot of the ongoing work for the project is focusing on the community listening sessions, which are coming up, as Barb mentioned, 2 next week, and also on planning for the workshops. We also have, of course, in the background, been doing a lot of analysis of the data that was collected through the town halls, through the data questionnaires, and all the on-site dispatch center visits. We are looking for some initial data on that in terms of how that is going to be put together and what the inventory and assessment report will look like. I know that analysis is ongoing. Jason did send me some a little bit of data yesterday in terms of a beginning outline on the dispatch information, which essentially shows the addressing each of the different dispatch centers throughout the state, identifying the organization, the funding sources, public safety, the technology systems in use, facilities, and the communications networks. We do anticipate getting further information on the outline and that information towards the end of this week, and we'll certainly pass that on when that's received. In terms of taking a quick look at the overall schedule, I'll share that. As I mentioned, well, of course, we have completed the workshops and the site visits. We are currently in the analysis phase where we're analyzing and accumulating all that data. I know the data from the data questionnaires, the 32, I believe, that we received has been all consolidated, and that is being analyzed. And the primary item on the schedule is the delivery of the system inventory and assessment report. As Jen mentioned earlier, the requirement for that via the contract is 25th of this month. Starting to feel a little bit of pressure on that date, given we don't have a draft at this point, but we are hopeful that will be moving along quickly. We have identified the community listening sessions on here, and then a tentative schedule for the workshops. That'll probably be pushed out, as we mentioned, into the November timeframe. So I'll look to update that over the next couple of weeks. That is where we currently stand, and as I mentioned, ongoing efforts. Over the next couple of weeks prior to the next meeting, we will hold the community listening sessions and have an outline, hopefully a draft of the inventory and assessment report, and continue that analysis.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dom. Phil, we usually get a mission critical update here. Are you have things to share?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think Dom did a good job of hitting the highlights. I know he had a conversation with Jason yesterday as well. I think, I can I know from talking to Jason, the main focus is, as you mentioned, is finishing up the analysis and the data collection report, and also the development of the wireless guys mapping out the propagation assessments. Those are the two items that they're focusing on for the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Any questions for Televator Mission Critical? Okay. All right then. Thank you all. New business. Does anyone have new business for today?
I wanted to just drop into this group. It was pointed out to us. I don't even remember who did at this point now, but there was an article in Digger about a piece of legislation from last session that convened a group of legislators, Senator Hardy and I believe Representative McCarthy from House and Senate GovOps were part of it, plus I believe appropriations folks. Is that what you recall from reading it? Are convening in the off season to talk about the issue of lack of county governance and government at the county level, and how that has left many communities, say, for example, in the wake of a disaster, trying to interface with a federal entity like FEMA, how it has potentially left some communities at a disadvantage. It seems like this group, including MCP and Televate, should be aware that that's ongoing work. And at some point, I gotta believe that intersects with the funding and governance piece of this project, if they come up with any paths forward. So I just wanted to mention that. Do you remember what the act number was? Was it 129, Barb or Paul?
I think it was S 159, but I think it was Act 181.
Okay,
It's pretty much a guess.
probably in this dumpster fire of an inbox somewhere.
Yes.
But there is an article in VT Digger that speaks about it and has some information. So I think that's something for the group to be aware of.
Yeah, and
The other-
181 is completely wrong. So sorry, I'm not sure.
It's Act 118.
Oh, you had the numbers
Act
right.
118.
I did. I mean,
Way to
really, does the
go.
order matter?
No,
Oh,
no.
yeah,
It's
come
the
on.
bill. The bill is
You know,
S159.
191, 911. Does the order of the numbers matter?
Right. Close enough. All right. Well, good. I do think it's important that everyone be aware of that work that's going on, and yes. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yes, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is that Ron and I, both being Islanders, intended to meet last night with the fire chiefs and the sheriff last night. It turned out being three of the 5 fire chiefs and the sheriff. One of the fire chiefs that came to the meeting also provides the radio support and communication support for the 2 EMS providers up in the islands. So they felt that was covered. The EMS chiefs were invited as well. It was a bit of a foray into what I called in my mind a micro town hall, where it was very specifically the emergency service providers in a rural county that may or may not have been able to come to a larger town hall, may or may not have wanted to talk in front of elected officials and others. And I thought the information that we discussed was not earth-shattering or particularly new, but I do have some information that I'll pass along to Televate and MCP about what we talked about in terms of their top priorities for a future system. The ground we covered included what do they like about the current arrangement? What do they not like and why? Information on known dead zones for cellular and radio. Information's about how they currently collaborate with other agencies. And when you think about a future public safety communications plan, what are your top priorities? So, it with nothing earth shattering, but just an opportunity to be with our local colleagues up there. And I want to wait to talk to Ron after we sift through the information that there's one other chief that wasn't able to come that I would just want him to weigh in on the notes I took. But maybe it's an idea in other counties. because it seemed to be much more of a fireside chat. The sheriff brought pizza. It was less than an hour and a half, and everyone spoke candidly because it was just a cadre of first responder types. And there might be value in doing some micro town halls. Maybe that's what the workshops are, but those are more topically based as opposed to regionally based. So throwing it out as food for thought, I was thinking particularly like in Addison County or even some more rural counties up in the Northeast Kingdom, where folks will really get an opportunity to know that they spoke to the task force and they had voice.
Yes. I see nods. I see nods from task force members, so sounds like a good idea. I think the tricky part, well, at least for me, maybe it's just because I'm not as familiar with each and every on the ground response agency, right, would be identifying who we're talking to. But I would think task force membership could identify those folks.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we have to do it in every county, but I think I think my deputy commissioner and I would like to have this type of conversation up in the Northeast Kingdom with a couple different counties. We're doing some other public safety work up in, say, the St. Johnsbury area. And it jives nicely with being accessible to folks up there. So more to come from my side, but I'm just planting the seed with you. If you have the desire to do that in your county, it obviously does not and should not involve a quorum of the task force members. It should be you, one task, maybe two task force members, and the leadership of first responder agencies, and go from there. But happy to talk offline. If anyone else that thinks that's something they might want to lean into, let me know, and I'll tell you how Ron and I envisioned it, and you can do your own thing. But I think that the more ways we receive information from the people who are actually impacted by these decisions, the better.
Good points.
Oh, geez, I was
Comments,
supposed to be on the presser 4 minutes
Yep.
ago.
You're late.
Nice job, Jen. Winning. I gotta go.
All right, Jen. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so, all right. Anything else for new business? So you can kick that idea around for a while, and as Jen said, reach out to her for ideas on how to put things into motion if you find that of value. So, okay. Confirming the next meeting, we are on the books for October 30th. Of course, we have the community listening sessions up for next week. Please watch for that scheduling email for those sessions and let me know if any changes need to be made. And remember to register for the event that you're going to attend. I think if there is nothing else, we can take a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, I'll make the motion to adjourn, but I just want to let you know, I will not be here on the 30th, just FYI.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So we've got a motion from Paul, a second from Jim, and all in favor of adjourning, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
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 All righty, excellent. We are adjourned. I will talk to everybody. Well, along the way, I'll be in touch between now and the end of the week with the schedule and so forth. So thanks for your time, everybody. Have a good rest of the day.
Good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.